Okay, let's jump into it. Well, again, thanks everybody for joining this morning's webinar. My name is Adam Zabel. I'm presenting to you here from our offices here at NEWITY in Chicago. So if I've got any fellow Chicagoans on the call, or Midwesterners for that matter, welcome, but welcome to everyone from wherever you are. We've had some eclectic summer weather here in the Midwest, which I think is across the country, a lot of heat waves and thunderstorms. So always kind of fun to feel the full force of summer weather here in Chicago. So the purpose of the webinar today is to provide a little bit of information about the 7A loan program that we have here at NEWITY that we administer alongside our funding partner, which is Northeast Bank. I'll talk a little bit about some basic background about the program, what we do, who we are, what the SBA is, who they are, as well as provide a brief demo of exactly the loan application process. So each step of the way, and I'll point out some little key things along the way, just to look out for if you do decide to come in and apply with us. So I've just got some slides here to guide the discussion. That's me, Adam Zabel, head of credit here at NEWITY. So I've, from the beginning of the company, been involved in building out the application journey for our members. I oversee the credit and underwriting team. So, all of the loan packaging that we do, all of the underwriting, working with our customers who come through and apply with us, is all done by my team. And so a lot of what you'll see today, I've had a hand in kind of helping put together. So I'm excited to share that with you today. And who is NEWITY? So for those who don't know us, NEWITY is, we say we're your source for small business capital. We've helped over 120,000 businesses secure $11.4 billion in funding. That includes just shy of $90 million of SBA 7A loans approved year to date. Our average loan size might jump out to you. It's actually quite small for a 7A lender. We're at just shy of 96,000. I think as of the current moment, we're probably inching up towards 100,000 average loan size. We are the number one facilitator of SBA 7A loans under $100,000. So we've built everything we do around providing access to capital for businesses that often might be overlooked by larger lenders. So the folks who are looking for anywhere from $50,000 up to $500,000, we do offer a product for. And actually, our loan sizes go down below $50,000 as well. Actually, all the way down to $17,500 is the smallest loan that we have. So really trying to just provide an easy way to access capital for businesses out there who may not have a banking relationship yet, or it's maybe the first time they've tried to interact with the SBA's loan program. That's really what we've set out to help people achieve. So what is the SBA? For anybody who maybe isn't aware of this government program that exists, love to just speak to it briefly. So the SBA is the Small Business Administration. It's an independent agency of the federal government. And essentially, it was built, it's been around for 75 plus years. So it's not a new program. I'm sure everyone's heard of it, or most have heard of it. But essentially, the 7A program specifically, when you hear 7A, it's just a subchapter of the lending code that sort of created this program. And it's a specific type of loan that is basically guaranteed to some percentage by the federal government. And so what that means is the government says, hey, bank, I know typically you lend to larger companies that can show you millions of dollars of profits. It's really easy to give a loan to the NVIDIAs of the world, the Microsofts of the world, right? But for smaller businesses that maybe don't have that level of scale and lenders are a little more tentative to advance capital to, this program is designed to incentivize that and help sort of shift some of that risk away from the lender's balance sheet and into the federal government. So, it's a program that is really designed well to provide access to capital to folks who may not otherwise have it. With that, and with it being a government program, it does have a few extra steps involved to getting a loan. That's why, maybe some folks who are on the call have said, I've tried to go the SBA loan route before. It sounds great on paper, but it's an endless list of documents, or it takes weeks. I'm going to show you how we've simplified a lot of that, and really try to help bring this product to a wider audience by really focusing on simplicity. Why would you choose an SBA loan as a business owner? So that's why a lender might participate in the program. A business owner might participate because there's actually a lot of benefits to an SBA loan compared to some other traditional options, especially those options that are readily available. So typically, the main benefits are going to be lower interest rates in general. You know, Typically the lowest interest rates you'll see out there are going to be that traditional bank financing that maybe a larger company can get, or if you're fortunate enough to have a long running relationship with with your local bank, maybe you have access to some of those traditional bank products. That's kind of the lowest interest rate you'll see out there. I would say SBA loans come just behind that. So certainly a lower interest rate than a business credit card or an online working capital financer that you might find through a Google search. The terms are going to be much better than those alternative sources of capital as well. So our loans are a 10-year term. So it gives you a longer repayment period, which means smaller payments, right? Smaller monthly payments. And the payments monthly. Some of these online working capital providers will, you may not see it when you're looking at the terms, but it's a weekly. They're going to do a weekly automatic withdrawal from, directly from the account, and it's like, gosh, weekly payment plus interest that adds up really quickly when you compound over a year. And it can actually end up being a much higher interest rate than you might have seen originally. So SBA loans, there's a lot of controls with it being a government program of what lenders are allowed to charge in terms of fees, in terms of interest. Again, 10-year term, monthly repayments, so smaller loan payments. And there's a lot of uses of SBA loans. So the ones we focus on are working capital, just general business operating expenses, and debt refinance. So if you have taken on some expensive capital that you're looking to refinance off of your balance sheet, SBA 7A loan could be a great way to do that. Essentially, it would repay that lender, consolidate that debt, and then you would just make payments on your SBA loan, to Northeast Bank if you do it with us, instead of paying one or multiple higher cost lenders. So those are some of the benefits. Our 7A working capital loans here, again, I've mentioned a couple of times, these are funded by Northeast Bank. Northeast Bank is a PLP, which means preferred SBA lender. Been doing SBA loans for a very long time. We work very closely with them. We do all the interaction with the customer. It'll be my team, my underwriting team. But it's important to know NEWITY is not the bank providing the financing. It's also important to note that the government does not provide financing directly for SBA loans, right? They provide that guarantee for the loan, but it's not the federal government that's dispersing funds when we talk about SBA 7A loans, which is a little different than it was, say, for if you got an EIDL, maybe during the pandemic, the emergency loan that the government made available, that was a direct disbursement by the SBA. PPP loans were not a direct disbursement by the SBA. Those were also dispersed by private lenders working in partnership with the SBA. So for our loans, some minimum requirements here. 660 FICO for the majority owner is a minimum requirement FICO score. In operation for at least 1 year. I'll show you on the next slide. We're excited about a new startup offering that we're just bringing to the market sort of as we speak. New program for us here. $50,000 in minimum annual revenue, and it must meet the SBA size and industry requirements. So the SBA itself basically says, we don't want to guarantee loans to, like I said before, the Microsofts of the world. They're too big. They don't qualify. So I will say that the size and industry requirements are from a small business perspective, it's a pretty large requirement. So if you're worried you may not meet that size standard, you could do a quick Google. You'll find that it's a pretty high level of number of employees. I think it's over 500 employees or something like that. And some of the revenue numbers are in the high tens, if not hundreds of millions. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's a pretty high requirement. So most small businesses would qualify. And we like to say, if you qualified for PPP or EIDL, it's not a guarantee, but there's a pretty good chance that you would qualify for the SBA 7A loan as well. I mentioned the term. interest rate is Wall Street Journal Prime plus 2.75%. What does that mean right now? It means 11.25% per year. Okay. We know the interest rate environment is high right now, right? Interest rates are highest they've been since the 80s, essentially. And they are variable terms. So we get a lot of people say, well, I hear variable rate. I think immediately, that's not a good idea. I would argue that, if you kind of think about the current environment that we're in, interest rates aren't really expected to keep going up. Of course, I would certainly not try to predict what the Fed is going to do. But when you're in a situation where rates are the highest they've been in 30 plus years, that variable term can work for you, right? Because your interest rate is going to go down. It's going to get adjusted every quarter. And so if rates go down, that means that prime rate goes down and your loan interest rate would go down. So it's not fixed at a high rate. It will vary. And every SBA loan that I'm aware of is that similar structure. It's going to be tied to the Wall Street Journal prime rate. There's actually few, if any, providers I know of that do fixed rate SBA loans, just kind of as a industry FYI there. So time to receive 3 to 4 weeks. So we're working on this all the time. I got, I'm sure some team members on the call, and they know like we're trying to be the fastest provider out there of SBA loans. 3 to 4 weeks is pretty good if you look at the industry, and just know that I'll be working hard to make that faster. So here's the startup loans I was talking about. So basically, it's a loan of up to $50,000 per startup business, right? And we define a startup as somebody who's been in operation for at least 2 months, okay? So you don't have to have that 1 year requirement that I talked about before. It's going to be a 720 FICO requirement for the majority owner, or if there's a shared ownership, kind of an average FICO of those shared owners. So the way the loan amount is going to be calculated on that is going to be based on revenue. So if you're kind of new to business, but you're collecting, good monthly revenue, we'd love to chat and see if there's a way we could help you out with a startup loan of up to $50,000. And just real quick, some alternative loans on our platform. So I'm going to show you how it works when you go through the application, the pre-screen application. There's some technology that's built in there to run a soft credit score. Won't impact your credit. I'll probably say that a few more times as we go through this. No impact to credit, no cost to apply. But if you don't end up qualifying for a 7A loan after going through that process, there are some other options that we'll present to you. So we'll see, hopefully we can get you into the SBA program, but if not, here's a couple options that it's up to you if you'd like to pursue. So there's some term loans of up to $250,000. That's got a 625 FICO minimum. Some lines of credit that go higher up to 2 million. And you'll see that kind of lower FICO score, 500 FICO is the minimum for that product. And some credit building options. So if you say, I'm kind of new to this, I'm trying to get my credit in order, we'd love to work alongside you, sort of help you get into that position where you do qualify for a 7A loan with us. And there's a credit builder in there that is really good for that. It shows some really good progress in helping folks lift their business and consumer credit score. So, okay, so how to apply. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and hop into the demo of the platform. So let me just switch up my screen here. So hopefully everybody can see this okay. But this is we're gonna go through the registration and the borrower journey here for if you decide to apply with us. So I guess I should have mentioned at the top too, we are tracking Q&A, so please feel free to submit your questions into the chat. I'm hoping to have a little bit of time at the end of the call to run through some questions, and then we'll always pull down all the questions that we get, type up a response, and make sure you get an answer. If not during the call, then shortly after. So first step of applying with us is going to be to go through the registration. This is going to be how you create an account with us and basically give us some very high level information about your business, and then how can we get in touch with you, right? So we're going to add a new user to the account here. In this case, Scotty Scheffler is our owner. He's been doing pretty well lately. His basic contact information there, great. And then just some really high level information about the business. So we're going to get into more specifics when we start underwriting, but for now, just give us a range, number of employees, about how many, annual revenue, about what range you do in a year, and then your industry. As you start typing your industry, it'll give you some options. So these industries that you see pop up here, these are going to be correlated with the NAICS code system. If anyone's familiar with the NAICS code, basically a standardized industry code database that governments and taxes use. If you start typing like about what you do, you'll see some options pop up. Just pick the one that's closest to you. Again, we're going to work with you when we're underwriting the file, make sure all this stuff is correct. So take your time, but especially during this registration, don't worry if you don't have what you feel like might be the exact thing we're looking for. You'll get a little summary here. You can submit your registration, and that's going to take you to the Smart Portal dashboard. So you can see here, very basic layout, super simple, easy to know where we want to, the green button where we're going to start our application. But before I get to that, I just want to point out a couple of resources that are built in here as well. If you hover over the Help Center toggle at the top, you'll see member resources, FAQ, some other options in there. We have a really robust member resources team here at NEWITY. So you can see down in the lower right, there's also that like chat icon. That member resources tab is going to take you to a whole bunch of different things that we have to help you get started. It's going to tell you how to get in touch with us. There's some user guides in there, just in case you wanted to read through anything before you get started. That's going to be the place to go for that. Same with FAQ, a really well built out knowledge library. My colleague Rachel's on the call. She's done an awesome job with her team building that out and really trying to provide as much information as possible to somebody who wanted to educate themselves before getting into the process. Hopefully you'll see the process is quite simple. And so there's not a requirement to do a whole ton of prep ahead of time. I'll point out where I think preparation does make sense, but just in case you wanted to read up, that's where I would go. And then I think I'll just show here, you can add multiple businesses up there to the top right. You would just go through the same exact registration process, chat with the support team. That's a live chat. So there are folks on the other end of that chat. Looking forward to discussing any questions you have as you go through the application itself. So we'll jump into the application here. Basically, we're just going to collect some really high level information about the business, the loan request, and you'll see it's going to go like one layer more detailed than we saw during registration. You'll also see that any information you provided to us during registration is going to be carried forward into the application itself. So one thing I can't stand is when I'm doing something, I keep getting asked to provide the same thing over and over. So we've tried to solve for that here. So you'll see start date was ported over from the registration. We now want a more specific number of employees. So that, and same with revenue. So here we're saying, what's your average monthly revenue? Just give us an average. No need to calculate this out or anything. I mean, obviously, if you'd like to look at your last few bank statements or what have you, that'd be great. But in terms of average monthly, again, don't need to get too details. And then annual revenue, I would recommend when you're filling out the annual revenue section to just grab the most recent tax return that you filed for your business, whether that be 2023, if you've done it, if you're on extension for 2023, go back to 2022, grab that tax return and enter it in here. We're going to do some work with the tax returns when we're underwriting. So that's definitely a file that you'll want to have, kind of readily available. And I'll get to the documents shortly on how we can get started with documents. So we're just typing some numbers in here. Business debt outstanding. What do you have currently out in debt? Do you have some credit cards? Do you have a working capital loan on the balance sheet? No problem. Just let us know. So kind of help us orient a little bit. Again, business structure, tax ID. This is a section where I might just flag to just take a little bit of, just be careful. We see a lot of business tax IDs that maybe have a transfigured number or something like that. Just the more accurate that this stuff is, the faster the underwriting process will be. It's not anything that we can't fix. Trust me, all this stuff will get cleaned up as we work with you, but it just makes it a little bit faster if it's, the more correct it is on the front end. Again, that industry has been brought over from the beginning. If you're a franchise, great, we can do franchises, but just let us know. And then, business address. That's going to be basically all the information that we need on the business. And now we're going to get into the owners. So a couple different features here in the ownership that makes it pretty cool. When you first click to add the owner, basically, if you are that person, like say, when I registered, say I'm Scotty, I could say, yes, that's me, add my information, and then that information will get brought in. If instead maybe you're filling out an application on behalf of your business, you're the CFO or something, and you've got to provide the owners, that's not you, then you would go through this flow. So you would say, I'm going to add an individual owner. I have two choices here. I can share the form, and by sharing the form, I'm just going to enter the email and the phone number of the person. So again, that example before, this is I need my owner's info. I don't keep his social security number or her date of birth on file. So I'm going to go ahead and just send this form to them. What this will do is it'll send them a link. When they click that link, it will go directly to the ownership form. It'll go directly to this next form that you're about to see here. So they don't need to go through the registration or the application, and you don't need to catch them up on like, hey, here's what I've entered so far, just do that. No, it'll just take them right here. They can fill out their information, click OK, and then it's good to go. We've got the information, and it just makes it so that pretty seamless. So basic stuff here. What we do collect on the owner, so first name, last name, ownership percentage, title at the business, and then of course, just social, date of birth, citizenship status, and then some basic contact info for the owner. Finally, home address. Okay, so social, name, date of birth, contact info, home address. These questions here are SBA questions. So again, government program, right? There's some forms that need to be filled out. The questions that you see listed here are going to go directly to some of those forms and essentially spare you from having to go through the process of filling out government forms yourself. This is going to kind of do all of that for you. You'll see the questions that we've written out here are quite simple. Is the applicant or business presently involved in any legal proceedings? If you hover over the underlined section, it's going to tell you a bit of a more detailed definition of what that means. So when you look at the government form itself, all of these are kind of different questions, and it's a lot of words. Let's be honest. So we've kind of condensed it. But if you are interested in like, well, what does that mean? Legal proceedings or business activities? Just hover over it. It will give you the full definition from the form of what that means. Okay, are you an owner of any other business? The SBA says, we just need to understand if you own this business that's applying and other businesses. May or may not factor in as an affiliate, as the SBA would call it, but just something that we'll kind of check the box on as we go through underwriting the file. And then finally, this optional demographic survey. This is for the SBA. They require SBA applicants request this info, but as you can see, it's not required to provide. So there's not disclosed. If you prefer not to disclose, you could certainly click not disclose for all of them. Of course, if you prefer to disclose, that's totally your choice. Will not impact anything whatsoever on the application. It's just a part of the government form. And that's it. So we're through. We've gone through, provided some information on our loan request, some basic business info, some info about the owner, and now we're at the point where we're going to run through the pre-screen. So we're done. We're going to click submit. The technology is going to do its work, and it's going to tell us how much we qualify for, so that we can decide if we want to move forward. We'll provide some consent here. Each of these different boxes I'm checking, they have an underline. You can see they have that underline. Like terms of use, privacy policy, terms of application. You could click on those if you'd like to read them, and it'll open up in your browser. So all the information is right there. And just pointing out one more time that your credit will not be impacted by submitting this loan application. Okay, so it's not a hard pull. It's never a hard pull. Even if you end up getting funded, there will not be a hard inquiry on your consumer credit report at all. It's a soft pull. I just want to make sure I pull that, because I know that's certainly something that can be concerning. Thinking, well, this is going to impact my credit score. I promise it won't. It won't. So we'll click the accept and continue. And now the decision engine, like I mentioned, is running. It's going to do some different items in the background. It's kind of looking at the revenue, looking at those credit scores we talked about, a business credit score that the SBA requires be pulled for their applications, and all that's kind of happening in the background. Okay, so here we are. We've reached the offer screen. So pleased to see here that my demo business here qualifies for what we feel looks like up to $250,000. Okay, and again, it's just going to kind of give the basic terms here of what that loan looks like. So this is, in this case, a SBA 7A term loan. I should mention, under the 7A program, right now they're all single disbursement term loans that we offer. So there's not a line of credit feature that we offer today on the SBA product. But so these are term loans. It'll be a single disbursement for the full amount of the loan less closing costs. And so some of that's outlined here. So time to receive 2 to 3 weeks. Estimated monthly payment on this loan amount would be just under $3,500. 10-year term, always 10-year term, and always funded with Northeast Bank on these SBA loans. So let's say we like the way this offer looks. It looks good. We're going to click proceed with offer. And this is going to take us to the upload document screen. So I think it's an important place to just take a minute and just look at what you're seeing here on the document upload screen. So I would be hard pressed to find another provider out there of SBA loans that asks for fewer documents than we do. We spent a lot of time really taking a fine tooth comb to what documents do we need to process this loan request. We don't want to take everything possible and just take use whatever we decide we want to. No, all we want from you is exactly what we need to move forward. And that's what you're seeing here on the list. So these are the ones we kind of like can't live without, right? We try to delete all of them, but these ones, it's like, okay, well, we actually do need these. So business tax return or proof of extension. So we ask for your most recent filing. It's going to be basically what this is going to look like when you run through it is it's going to say, please give us your 2022 tax return. All businesses would have been required to file that 2022 return by now. And then for 2023, love it if you've got your 2023 return, provide that and you're done with taxes. But if you don't, then we do have to collect proof of extension and then an internal P&L. So a management P&L or some kind of P&L for the business if you don't have that 2023 tax return. Okay. And then on the personal tax return side, so this is going to be for the majority owner, one personal tax return, or kind of the same thing. So 2022 return, and then 2023, either the return or the proof of extension. And I can't remember, I believe if you have the 23 return, then you're good to move forward. We don't need the 22, I believe. Okay, so just those, so business taxes, personal taxes, and then bank statements. So last 3 months of business bank statements, keep it simple. PDFs are great. Just drop those in. If you're one of the startup businesses that we talked about before, then you would only need to provide, like, let's say 2 months if you were a 2-month business. So obviously you couldn't provide 3 if you'd only been in business for 2 months. And then finally, because this application was for over $50,000, we do ask for a business debt schedule. That's an SBA requirement. It's something that's going to factor into the underwriting a bit. So that business debt schedule requirement would not be there if this were a loan of up to $50,000. That's not needed then. Okay. And then just additional documents, totally optional. If you've got something else that you want to, maybe you want to upload some description or something like that of the business, fine. Again, I'll talk a little bit in a second about what's going to happen next in terms of how our team's going to work with what you provide here. So, no need to provide anything additional, but maybe think it'd be helpful. Okay, so you'd finish that up. You would click submit documents, and you're totally done with the application process. You can see here, I didn't provide any documents for my business there. Excuse me. So there's no, I'm still in the upload document phase, but you can see my completion marker here is going to kind of track my progress of my loan as I go. Once documents are uploaded, that percentage is going to jump way up. That's really kind of the main, really the main thing, especially on the front end for business owners, is just getting those documents sorted and uploaded. And then we're going to take it from there. Okay. So I will jump, I'll jump back to slides here, although we're just about getting to the end of what I've tried to present. But basically, I do want to talk a little bit about what happens next. So Once you provide those documents, you're going to get contacted by a member of the team, live person. Typically, our goal is to get in touch with you same day or next day. If it takes a business day or two, I'm working to get that to be one day. And basically, there's going to be a document specialist who is going to be your primary point of contact, especially for getting this first phase of this first set of documents in order. Okay. So that person's going to get in touch with you, let you know, hey, looks great. We've got your tax return here. Sometimes somebody might provide a redacted tax return, and they'll say, hey, unfortunately, looks like that tax return is redacted. We do need it to be, complete and unredacted. Essentially, they're going to help you sort of clean up those documents so that the underwriting team can really move quickly. The next step after that is underwriting. So the underwriting team is going to take that document set, calculate a loan amount, get back to you right away and say, hey, offer amount was 250,000, initial underwriting 250,000. This looks good. To finish up, I may just need one or two documents depending on the loan request. Certain requirements might come into play. Typically, what we see if there is additional documents required, it's like something to clear up. Maybe there's maybe the business went through a piece of litigation a few years ago or something like that. I say, did that case get finished up? It did. Here's the disposition of the case. Things like that kind of come up. Sometimes a lease, if you're leasing your space, and it's your business is very dependent on that location, we would say, hey, we need to get a copy of that lease. But it's really kind of just one-off things like that. We've again really built that initial document screen to say this is what we need. Barring kind of any special situations, we're able to really move forward after that point. So underwriting team's going to work on the file for hopefully just a day or two, and then we're essentially submitting that application on to the bank saying this one's good to go. They'll give it one final review, and then we'll go into closing. And so once in closing, you'll get a full set of closing documents that are going to outline all of the details of the loan. Everything needed to sort of sign and finish up, and then if they look good and you sign them, then you're into funding. So again, running about 3 to 4 weeks start to finish right now, with a constant focus on making that faster. So to get to that application, portal.newitymarket.com, that's going to be where you get started on going through the registration and then do the application process that I just showed. I should point out too, I mentioned earlier about debt refinance. So same process for debt refi. So I think we're actually working on making it a little bit more clear as you go through that application that it is the same process, but if you just do that start application on business loans, if you have debt refi in mind, we're going to see that during underwriting. We're going to look at, again, what you qualify for versus what you've got outstanding and how we might be able to help consolidate some of that debt. So, don't worry about looking for a separate process for debt refi. It's going to be essentially the same thing. Okay. And I guess I ran through this already. So, yep, apply and select. Provide your supporting docs. You're going to get a dedicated team member or two, and then get funded. Great. I would love to take a look at the Q&A and just see if there's anything I can get to. Mitch, I'm not seeing anything I know there's been some questions, I think. I've definitely seen some hands, but the Q&A looks blank to me. Do you see anything that we can get to?
Well, I did see one great question that came through. So what if you're a brand new startup with no tax filings?
Yes. So if you're a brand new startup with no tax filings, one document that would be very helpful if you have it is the your IRS EIN letter if you've gone through that process. If you haven't gone through the process of getting an EIN, I do recommend you do that. Typically, once you organize your LLC or incorporate, the next step you can do is submit that sort of proof of organization to the IRS and get that tax ID number. If you've not done that yet, just start with the bank statements that you have. If you've got a few months in business, hopefully your bank statements are showing some revenue collection. That is going to be kind of like what helps inform the loan amount. So, if you're so brand new that you haven't started collecting revenue yet, you're probably going to be better served waiting at least a couple of months until you've got some of those collections on file that we can use to come up with a loan amount. Otherwise, it either may not qualify yet, or will just be not as worth your time in terms of the loan amount that you're able to receive. So if you have the EIN letter, great, submit that. If you just have bank statements, then start there. Really good question.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. Let's go on to the next one. This is a question about, can I use SBA to purchase an existing business? And are there any business categories that do not qualify?
Really, really good question. The SBA program itself does allow for business acquisition loans. They are an SBA eligible use of funds. Today, NEWITY Northeast Bank, our program, does not offer business acquisition loans. It's definitely something we're researching. At this today, we do not offer those, but I will plug the SBA and say they do have a program for that that other lenders might offer. As far as eligible, I think the rule is just that the target company has to be an SBA eligible business. So things that are not federally legal, things of that nature, you can kind of find like an ineligible business list online if you just run a search.
Awesome. We've got another question here asking about home-based businesses. Do they qualify to apply?
Yes, they do. Home-based businesses do qualify. We work with a lot of folks who run their business out of their home. Depending on the type of business, I'm trying to think whether there's any really special requirements. I mean, typically what we see of home-based businesses are, folks who might be doing consulting or accounting work or legal work, something like that. Absolutely apply. Yeah. Short answer is yeah.
Great. We got another question here regarding specifically kind of the bank statements, and if you're kind of having a slow period, what are you exactly looking? What are we exactly looking for in the bank statements to qualify for a 7A loan?
Yeah, these are great questions. So regarding the bank statements, we do understand that some people's businesses are just seasonal by nature, right? So if that's the case, oftentimes what you can provide is like maybe a year-to-date P&L if you have it. Again, understanding that it might be your off-season period, but if you have that year-to-date P&L, and maybe you could provide that alongside like the prior year's full P&L, like just helping us understand the story of your business and say, hey, these last 3 months have been slow, so you're going to see maybe lower receipts of revenue type items in the bank statements. However, here's why, and here's maybe an extra document or two that you have readily on file that you can kind of alert the team to. That will really, really help with your application process. So again, we are like very allergic to asking for more documents here, but as the business owner, you might say, you can tell the story of your business better than we can by trying to sift through documents. So don't be shy to let your doc specialist or your underwriter know when you get assigned with them, like, hey, let me just tell you a little bit about my business. We're on the phone all the time too. If you'd rather do that over the phone and say, hey, let's just set up a 15-minute call where I can fill you in on the recent 3 months and what you're going to see in the bank statements, that's excellent. So we are looking for those kind of revenue type receipts just as sort of another way to verify the business operations, but we are always welcoming to having a conversation with you and kind of hearing in your own words what's been going on.
Great. I've got another question here, and I know we're kind of coming close to time, so let me know if
a couple more maybe.
I think we can take another one or two here.
Yeah.
If the business has more than one owner, what are the FICO requirements at that time? Do both owners have to have FICOs that meet the minimum? So walk us through multiple ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great question. So generally, it's going to be the majority owner. So if there's an owner that owns 70%, the other owner owns 30%. Generally, it's going to be based on that 70% owner. If there's shared ownership, so if it's like 33.333% owners, it would be like a blended average of all three. So that's kind of how it works in our process. So yeah, pretty much primary, unless it's shared, then we probably look at some of the others. Time for one more, maybe?
Yeah, I think we've got time for one more. And then just so everyone is aware, we will be collecting all of these questions and responding to them in our post that will go out next week. We'll have the video as well as the presentation available for everyone on this call and anyone else who is interested to read more about it. And always feel free to reach out to our team. If a business has one or more business, is it possible to get more than one loan?
Yes, 100%. We see it all the time in the registration. Once you register one business, same exact process. So you kind of go through, let's say so come on in, register, get your business in, and then I show this briefly so you can look back at the video, but in the top right, if you hover over your business name, you're going to see a drop down. And one of the options is register another business. If you click that, it will just take you through the exact same flow to register your second, third, fourth, however many businesses you have. And you can certainly apply for a loan for each business. There's certain rules the SBA has around affiliation, where it might just mean you have to provide an extra document or two, but there's no rule really preventing multiple businesses with the same owner. As long as they qualify, they can all get SBA loans for sure. Just gotta, we'll do the work on those affiliation rules to make sure everything's SBA compliant. All right. Well, thanks, Mitch, for the help on the Q&A and great points. We will answer any that are still in there that we didn't get to. Just wrapping up, want to say thank you so much again, sincerely, for taking your time to join us this morning. Hope the session was informative, and really hope to work with all of you in the coming days and weeks as you interact with the platform and reach out to us and hopefully connect with this great program. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk soon.